Morning. My name is Erik Schoennauer, and I'm the land use consultant that represents Sandhill Properties. Sandhill Properties is the current owner of El Paseo Shopping Center, and they're the applicant and developer for this proposed development that we're going to talk about today. I apologize, I have limited graphics because I was asked to be here sort of the last moment, or I was selected to be the person to be here. And so I don't have any of my stuff, but Ken and I came up with a way to put up an image so we could talk about that. But while he's working on it, let me just go on some background of like sort of why are we here. In 2011, the City Council adopted a new general plan called Envision 2040. A general plan is a document for the plan for growth in a city, housing, jobs, and all aspects of the physical environment in a city. And in that general plan adoption, the demographic study that was done by the city in 2010 showed that between 2010 and 2040, there would be 400,000 more people in the city of San Jose. 400,000 more people. And so the plan came up with a way to accommodate that new population growth and also accommodate the city's goal to have more jobs within our city. And with regard to the population growth, the demographic study showed that 60% of the new people in our city is what's called internal growth. People here having babies. So even if we wanted to build a wall around our city and say no one else can come in, we still have to accommodate 240,000 new people because people still keep having babies. And so if we want our children and grandchildren to stay here, we have to accommodate the growth. So the Envision 2040 general plan has had a new strategy, and that is having a greater focus of that growth into particular areas. The traditional areas of downtown are planned to grow significantly. Traditional job areas like North San Jose are going to grow significantly. But the new aspect of the plan was to select key locations in the city for urban villages. So major commercial corridors, areas near light rail or other transit, old shopping center areas, find those areas and then plan to redevelop them into denser, more urban, mixed-use development. And that's the style of development that the general plan pushes for. And the Paseo de Saratoga urban village is where our property exists. And
It's on there, by the way.
it's on there, okay. So one last thing, and then we'll go on to the actual development. The general plan has projected residential and job goals for each urban village. So in the Paseo de Saratoga urban village, there's projected or an allocation of 1,632 residential units for this urban village and 1,500 new jobs. That's the current numbers in the city's matrix. Keeping in mind, that's not a fixed number. The city council looks at general plan amendments to the general plan, amendments to the general plan, every year. Every 4 years, the city council does a major update to the general plan, and that major update happens to be happening this year. And approximately every decade, cities are required to do a comprehensive new general plan. So a general plan is not a static document. The numbers that come out at one time don't stay that way because cities over time evolve. So right now, these are the goal numbers in the urban village. In order to do new development in an urban village, there's two paths. Either the city has gone through an urban village planning process and adopted a specific plan for that urban village. In this case, they have not. There is no urban village plan yet, and the city has no intentions of doing planning in this area for some time due to lack of funding and resources. Therefore, to do an urban village project, you must go through what's called a signature project process. And the signature project process is very specific. First of all, the process you must go through is what's called a plan development rezoning and a plan development permit. What that means is every detail of the plan must be put forward. And the decision on that plan must be made the highest decision-making body of the city, which is the city council. So they said, well, if you're going to go forward with a plan, a project, without an adopted plan, you need to go through the most extensive process, revealing all the details and letting the city council, the highest authority in the city, make a decision whether it should be approved. So that's the process we will go through. And there are some criteria in the signature project process that must be met. First of all, you must provide job space that meets or exceeds the planned jobs for that urban village area. You must provide residential densities that also are at the average for that planned urban village area. You must provide a plan for publicly accessible open space of some type. It could be a public park, or it could be private plazas that are publicly accessible. It could be a lot of formats. You also have to have good pedestrian access and pedestrian movement within the project. And you have to have superior architecture going forward. And so that's the process that we're working within. And so now I'll give a brief summary of our plan development zoning, remembering that the zoning is not a detailed approval. It's the concept of the project, the types of uses, the scale of buildings, the general layout. The next step in the process of the permit, we'll get to locking in the details of that. I'm going to sit down so you can all see. So we have two sites that are part of one project. So we have this almost 9 acres of the existing El Paseo Shopping Center. And then we have this 1.8 acres across the street on the corner. And to orient you, if you can't read the names, this is Quito Road, this is Saratoga, this is Campbell Avenue. This is the existing REI building, the existing movie theaters, where there's no proposed development. And these are some of our shop spaces in front of El Paseo, where they're not part of this development. And so, the concept is to create a mixed-use village in this zone, including this site over here, and to create a great pedestrian environment through the middle of the development that links the neighborhood with the existing retail center to create a greater sense of place and connectivity, a place where you would want to go and spend time. And so this plan envisioned an axis for pedestrians and bikes this way, and an axis this way. And then a central plaza that pulled all the uses together. And as currently presented, we have 4 buildings on this site. So this building here is a residential building of 9 to 5 stories, taller at this side, and it steps down as it gets closer to the residential neighborhood. This building is a mixed-use residential over retail building, 10 stories, with ground floor retail on all sides of the building. These 2 buildings work together. This is the primary job space on the site. They will have the appearance of being office buildings, but we have the potential of putting an educational use in these buildings. So they will have the appearance of being an office building. They can function as an office building should that education use not come or move away. But there is a chance that the main tenant of these buildings will be an education, a K through 12 private school. And so this building is entirely education classroom facilities at 7 stories. This building is a mixed-use building with 3 stories of education classroom space and 4 stories at the top of dormitories. So this private school will have dormitory living for approximately 525 students out of a total campus population of 2,500 students. And the faculty for this school will be around 500 people, 500 jobs, which is actually very job intensive compared to even an office tower. So just to repeat, residential residential, retail, education, dormitory, these buildings. These are both 7 stories. The other thing I should point out in terms of sensitivity to the neighborhood is that both this building here and this building here exceed what's called the 45-degree daylight plan. The city has set a standard in urban villages and other places in the city where you need to set your building away from the property line. So here's the property line with our neighbors on Elmwood. And you have to set the buildings back compared to the height so that you maintain an open 45-degree angle from the property line so that they're not imposing on the neighborhood. Our plan far exceeds that 45-degree line, and we intend to honor that. And of course, we will work harder also about what this orientation should be. There's a berm there with great landscaping that's intended to be kept in place. We can enhance that to have even better screening. Another key component of the buildings and uses is the community open space. So this central part of the development is viewed as more of a commercial urban plaza space where you would come, eat, shop, hang out, a place you'd want to be. And then in the rear of the property, we're envisioning more of a green park space. As you can see, we put possible dog area, playground, and then a large turf area for sports or open play. And we anticipate that this area will be open to the public. We have to work out between the school use and the public use what the timing is, but that it will be open to the public. And so then jumping across the street, this is primarily a residential with small amount of commercial space. It's proposed at 12 stories. And the parking for this is underneath the building in a podium. And the parking for this is actually underground. And this is really revolutionary because most developers, investors in San Jose and the Valley don't want to build parking below ground because it's incredibly expensive. Sandhill has committed that the majority of this site will have a level of parking literally below ground, under the park, under the buildings. There are some levels above ground in a few of the buildings, but by and large the site has below grade parking. That's a major cost, but it also makes the site better. So the public paseos and open space are at the same grade as the rest of the neighborhood. So that's pretty much an overview of the project. In terms of the process going forward, the city will be preparing an environmental impact report. The environmental impact report, by state law, has to study 19 different categories of potential environmental impacts, from traffic to noise to air quality, etc. And in that, so that nobody's surprised, in that environmental impact report, there will be alternatives. So we're going to have an alternative that will look at what if it's all office, and we'll have an alternative, what if it's actually the education facility. We also will be studying more units. So we believe the EIR will study about 850 units, even though our initial zoning application, I think, showed 700 and something units. Because you only want to do an EIR once. And as we get down the road, working with the community, with the city council, if it makes sense to have more housing, we'll have environmentally cleared that. So that EIR process is just starting with the city. There are public check-ins there, including an initial EIR scoping meeting that the community will all be invited to, which is also a joint community meeting. That'll be one of the first things to happen in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks. The other next step in the process is for us, the developer, to formally file our plan development permit. And the plan development permit, as I mentioned earlier, is a much more detailed plan. It's the actual project that we want to get approved. And it also goes as far as introducing architecture, materials, landscape design, all the actual physical elements of the project. And there too, we need to get that submitted, in the next 2 to 3 months so that we can have public review of that. Overall, the timeline, it will take about a year from now. That's what it takes for the city process to have community engagement, to prepare and circulate the EIR, and then have hearings in front of Planning Commission and the City Council. That's the summary, and I'm open to any and all the questions that you have.
Eric, can you
Yes.
say something about the Catalyze SP workshop that's coming up?
Well, I could if I knew the details.
I got the details right
You
there.
have, okay.
Right there you go.
I know it's happening, but
Okay,
I
good.
don't know all the details.
Yeah, February 29th
Yes.
from 10 a.m. to noon, open to everyone. I think there will probably be food there.
There's gonna be food, there'll be food.
Okay, there you go. Oh yeah, you can speak to it, right, Bob? Yeah.
So the developer, Sandhill Properties, was very committed to community engagement. We actually started meeting with the community back in June of last year. Before we even submitted anything. We had a big open house at one of our empty storefronts. I don't know, 150 people showed up. We've also met with individual neighborhoods in the area, single individuals, the school district. We've met with lots of people already. They have partnered with Catalyze SV to facilitate additional community engagement, that is more involved than just sit and listen to a presentation. So that's what Catalyze SV is doing as part of the project's outreach. In addition, we have engaged other consultants who specialize in community engagement. So some of you may have talked with Leslie or Jennifer or Kathy, and their sole responsibility is keeping in touch with everybody and setting up one-on-one meetings, group meetings. So we're very serious about getting out with the community, and if there are any of you who want a one-on-one meeting or you want a group meeting with your neighborhood or your street or whomever, simply let us know. We're happy to be there.
So do you have an email list that we could give you our email?
Yeah, so my understanding is on our website, you can sign up for on our email distribution, and it's lpaseotogether.com. lpaseotogether, all one word, .com.
Okay.
And there's also I think there's a place to send email comments. And so if you send in a request through that info link, then we'll know if you want to meet.
Yeah, I just want to know more about meetings.
Yes.
Meeting notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions about the a residential area. I'm curious why you're not building a taller residential building where it's surrounded by parking lot and other things and the street. It's not going to impact the neighborhood. And that would be an opportunity to get more residents in there. Also, if there is a requirement of how many residential units per acre, I don't know that, you probably do with the city. And also how many parking spots you're designating per residential unit in your majority of parking underground that you talked about.
So the residential buildings are here, here, and here.
Right.
And so we are utilizing these sites that aren't near any single-family neighborhood to be taller buildings.
Yeah.
This is 10 stories, this is 12 stories.
So make the 10, 12. I mean, why aren't they a little taller since there's...
That's great.
You keep
I hope you'll be
talking about-
testifying at the city council meeting.
You talked about the enrollment or the more people coming in.
Sure.
We're actually closing schools in the, right across the street there.
Right.
And we're closing an elementary school because of lack of enrollment. So
Yes.
I'm curious about these numbers of where
Sure.
people are coming from.
So, I mean, in terms of the height of buildings, we're doing a balancing act.
Okay.
In this room, there are people that say we should have much lower buildings, much shorter buildings. We don't want tall buildings in our neighborhood. There are others who say, well, why don't you use the space efficiently and build taller buildings?
Well, in a shopping center
Yeah.
makes sense.
So we're balancing that. At the moment, based on that balancing act, this is what we propose with 5 stories here, stepping up to 9 stories, stepping up to 10, stepping up to 12. That's the current proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Amy Cody with Moreland West, and we are adjacent to the overall shopping center area, kind of over on the right. And we have appreciated, we reached out to Sandhill in the summer and requested to meet with them. We were able to meet in November, so we do appreciate that, and we've had continuing dialogue with Sandhill, which has been great. We've seen 3 designs, 2 preliminary, and this one with the zoning application. I think this is much better personally. I like the design a lot better, the plaza, for a lot of reasons. But we are still concerned about height and about density. Currently, I know Eric's making the point that the city residential unit goals are not static for the overall urban village, but currently for this property, the residential unit goal is 587, I believe, and there's some people who think that that's actually probably too high, maybe it's not quite correct. But anyways, the city currently says 587, and what's proposed is 731. So that is considerably higher, and Eric was saying that they're going to look into if 850 is possible. And our neighborhood concern, one of the concerns is we don't have a plan for the overall urban village. So if we start out with 10 and 12-story buildings at heights of 122 and 132 feet, this is quite high anywhere in the city. But especially in an area like this is not the Stevens Creek corridor. This is not a place that has a lot of, this is like transit-oriented development type heights. We don't have a lot of transit here. We hope that whatever does get, we definitely think this is a place for more density. We want affordable housing. We support more density here. But whatever does get built here, we need more public transit. We need better pedestrian and bicycle connections, because folks from our neighborhood don't even have good, safe ways right now just to cross over the street. So we want to make sure that we have these things. We want to work with the developer to talk to the city and others to make sure that this happens as a result of this development. But I have residents in my neighborhood who they're not on board with multifamily housing. There are a few. They want 3 and 4 stories. I think a bunch of us, maybe 5 to 8 stories would be more appropriate. 10 and 12 stories is really hard. It's really hard for our neighborhood right now to.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So.
Got it. So.
We like a lot of the design here.
Just to address the housing density, so the city's current urban village policy requires a minimum density of 55 units to the acre.
It's a lot.
A minimum. That's not a cap, that's a minimum.
Right.
And that works out to the 587 units based on the acreage of our project. As I said, on file is 700. We have 731 in the zoning, but the EIR will be studying 850.
And Eric, just to put that in context, my understanding that 55 acre or dwelling units per acre is because that's the break-even point, right? Where services the property taxes from the homes pay for the services.
I
right?
think partially. I think partially. The city has determined that densities at around 55 units to the acre or above are fiscally positive for the general fund, meaning they generate more revenue than it costs to provide service for those residents. So that's one rationale. The other is simply, if the city's view is if we're going to introduce housing into our commercial job areas and start tinkering with our job centers, we want to get a lot of housing. We don't want you to come in and mess up the employment and tax generation areas and not yield a good number of housing. So those are the 2 rationales. Ann?
What is the traffic pattern for the parking? Because when I looked at it, the last one that came out, it showed the ingress and egress for the parking to be along the berm. Has that changed?
Yeah, so you can see there is a garage entrance here. And remember, at this point, the garage is underground.
Right,
So
but how are people?
This is a ramp that goes down.
Right, no, I get that. But what I'm talking about is it also runs along the berm.
No, not in our current plan. So
On the right-hand side.
this this drops down into the garage. And all of this is landscaping and park.
Okay, because the one that was posted most recently
There.
showed driving along the berm and then the covered area right where you're pointing.
Right,
And that's for, I believe, delivery trucks to get out?
possibly.
Right, but what you're basically doing is driving all the traffic through Baker West neighborhood.
Actually, not at all. So
Well-
what will happen is there will be a traffic analysis based on the access points to the neighborhood. And the city will study where
There's a
cars are
hard
gonna come
median
and
there,
go.
so people can't make a left-hand turn in.
That's fine. So come to the EIR scoping meeting, Ann, and you can lay out all of those concerns, and we'll let the Department of
I've been
Transportation
talking to
analyze
you
it.
about this since the September meeting.
Right.
There's another entrance up there that was added to this plan, which takes some pressure off.
Up here?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. There's absolutely going to be access off of this main corridor.
There's another garage.
Yeah. And the big plus is that we're eliminating the drive-through service alley that goes along the entire back of the shopping center. That's a problem today. Cars driving through, trucks driving through, loading, at all times along the entire
It's closed
way.
off at night with bollards, so nobody can get through at night.
Okay, point taken. Daphne?
I want to talk about the school, and I have a question before and I'm a teacher, so this is really where I'm coming from. So, what company is putting a school with 2,500 kids? That's a huge school. So, do you have, they have somebody that has already said we're committing to the school?
There's a group that's interested, but we can't disclose it at this time.
Okay, and so 500 faculty, 500 faculty or
500 employees. 500
Okay,
employees.
so-
Remember, this is a dormitory. This is a
Right, so we have to
school
live
with
in-
on-site dormitories.
So 500 people working there, and all the people that will be working in the school will be moderate to low income people, because everyone who works in the school is. So, no, I mean, it just is. I mean, teacher housing, custodial housing, landscape, I mean, everyone who works there. So is that residential? Is any of that going to be low income, or do all those people have to live far away to come in here?
Well, first of all, the school itself has dormitory housing. So I assume some staff will be living with the students in dormitory housing on site.
Yeah.
And so that's one aspect of it. The other is that Sandhill Properties has indicated that they would like to provide the affordable units on site that are required by the city's inclusionary housing policy. Most developers pay a fee and then make all the units market rate. So that's the plan.
Have they looked at the New Jersey model where they actually did that, where they built the school with all the housing for everybody who worked there?
I'm not familiar with it. If you want to send us a link to it.
It'd be great. 'cause
We'll make an introduction to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worked out really well.
But I think, as I said, our intention is to provide affordable units within the residential towers that we're building. So there will be
That's great.
housing for very low income people per the city's inclusionary policy requirement.
And just on the playground field, is that actually going to stay private, or will that be turned over to the city as a park? Or is it going to be private with some public usage during off-school hours?
I think it's likely to be privately owned with public access. Yeah. Sasha, did you have something?
Yes, I still have the questions on the density right now, like for the residential, the units you are proposing is 731 to 850, which is half, like 45% to 52% of the capacity of the whole urban village of Paseo de Saratoga, which is 174 acres. We are Central Properties is stepping in 45% to 52% of the capacity of the residential homes into just 6% of the land. I would like to ask CP, is that very fair to the residents? them. So, I mean, as a, you are the investor, you are trying to maximize your profits, I understand that. And then I really like this plan, you have a, great, this is a very good plan, I have to say that, but I'm just not happy with the density and the height. And then I think city gonna take the responsibility to, to take a look at this plan from our residents' point. And since we have like 1,624 homes capacity for this area, why do we stop in that much? That 1,624 homes is capacity is the year of 2040. I know that the number will be fluid in the next few years. I know that, but are we really are we really have to, stopping that many person in this small, just a small, like 6% of the whole area's land, like so fast and so dense, and so it's just like, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, for more density and more height, for one thing. But have you considered concentrating the low-income housing in, what is that, building 4, I think? The residential building there that is on site for all of the retail and all of the rest, so that the workers in the retail area can live basically on site and not have to cross Saratoga and Lawrence?
We don't know yet. We're very early in the process.
Yeah.
All I know is that the developer, unlike most developers, has committed to providing the units per the city's policy.
Cool.
Somewhere on our site, remembering our
cool.
site is here and here, and that's all we know so far.
Yeah.
At some point, we will have to submit a housing compliance plan with the city that
Right.
will clearly denote how we're going to do that.
So someone hasn't asked the question yet.
I have 2 questions. One is there plans for transit to this place? I think Chuck was mentioned of tying all the pieces together with BTA. I don't see BTA on there. Is it going to be on there later? And my second question is on the schools, K through 12. I don't understand where they're going to play. I thought schools, when you're younger, you have football games and baseball fields and stuff like that. What kind of school, is it all in the park? Is that where the baseball and basketball or football you play?
Well, this won't be a traditional comprehensive high school like all American
K through
schools.
12, seems like the play.
Yeah, well, this is a big player.
So it's really a schoolyard.
It's going to be a joint use area.
But we couldn't go there during the day when school kids are playing. That's kind of.
Probably
Well,
not in the entire, that's all going to be worked out.
Okay, so what about the transportation question?
The developer had nothing to do with transportation, but there won't be any more transit if there isn't more residents and more jobs. You need to have ridership. VTA is not going to run buses to West Side San Jose unless there's more job centers and more housing.
Oh, so we build first and then when the transport.
That tends to be how it works. Otherwise, you run empty buses and we subsidize them at 85 to 90%.
I thought it'd be kind of at the same time, but
Who's next? Kim?
No, someone, go ahead.
I have a question. So can you show me, I know it's still a plan, but where are the entrances and exits to this underground parking? Is it just?
Well, I think on this exhibit, I see an entry here, I see an entry here, I see an entry here. That's what I see.
So
Gary.
how do they get to that corner?
As I said, and we will cover this in more detail when we submit our PD permit.
So we're running out of time, so let's be quick on the questions.
City of San Jose is 55 units per acre. I'm getting confused there.
That's the minimum requirement.
Right, what's the El Paseo, how many units per acre do you see for El Paseo? I mean, I'm trying to get some correlation.
I didn't do the math. Ours is at 731 units, it's 69 units per acre.
Okay, thank you.
Back here.
Jerry, I'm a teacher as well, 30 years in California, and I've never heard of that ratio. 500 jobs to 2,500 students, and you can't tell this group here where the funding's coming from. That's interesting. On a related note, can you tell us about your relationship with the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority?
I know nothing about it.
You don't know much?
I don't know anything.
You don't know anything about the Abu Dhabi investment?
I deal with land use, and I don't work for Sand Hill, I'm a consultant. I don't do their business negotiations, I deal with the land use.
Yeah, well, where's the money coming from? My understanding is Sand Hill owns the Keeper Shopping Center now, right? Just around the corner, they obviously own Valco. They own Main Street, there've been promises made at places like Main Street for, senior housing. Sunnyvale hasn't happened. Your company has a checkered past. How about the relationship with the school districts, Fremont Union High School District and Cupertino Union? I'm saying is.
Yeah, I don't think,
Right?
I work on land use issues. If you have a land use question, I'll answer it.
so
If you have a business question, you can call Sand Hill.
Richard has a question, and then Doris. Oh, no, sorry. Richard, you had one, right?
I've heard a lot of talk today about affordable housing, but I've heard nobody mention anything about veterans, senior citizens, or handicapped people. Could you explain what you intend to do about that?
The housing is open to all people. A veteran can apply to be in the affordable housing, a senior can apply
What
to
does
be in the
affordable
housing.
mean?
Per the city policy, 15% of the housing has to be for low and very low income.
What is the definition of affordable housing?
50% of the median income or less. It's all city policy. Next.
Yeah, next and then Doris.
I'm sorry, that was kind of a similar question. Like, I think that's great to provide on-site affordable housing, but I just wanted to be clear about what the AMI levels are. Just, and this is not a decision of yours, but just with 731 units, like what are we talking about, like of that 15%? I was assuming it's more like 90% or 80% AMI, maybe a few 60% AMI, but 50 is really low. I'd be surprised. I mean, can you
Okay,
add
when we
that
prepare our-
15%?
When we prepare our housing compliance plan, then all those details will be revealed. And the city council is continuously changing the policy. So what the policy is today, I don't know if that'll be the same as it is in March or by the time our project comes forward.
That's something we're
at the
really
end of the year.
interested in. And I know the city thing.
Meaning you don't want lower affordability?
No, not that. That'd be great. I want to just be clear about when we say affordable, are we talking about 80% AMI, which is a really high number? I mean, we just want to know what affordable means for this project.
As defined by the city's inclusionary housing policy.
Yeah, no, I understand that. We want
Well,
some.
so that might be another presentation that Cassidy could give at the next meeting.
Yes.
Doris,
I just wondered.
because that is more
what
generic,
your
sorry.
plan is for what you call majority of parking underground. How many spaces per unit are you considering for that?
So the question was how many spaces per unit for parking?
Yeah, the underground garage is a total of 870 spaces.
So that's 1.5.
1.5, so there we go with that, half a car again. And where's the rest?
Which half do you want? The front, the back, or the left, the right?
And where's the rest of the parking gonna be? You say majority is underground.
Yeah, so I believe in this building, there are a couple of levels above grade, and this building is a couple levels above grade.
Oh.
Yeah. So most is in the big underground, but there are some that is built within the building itself.
So they're not gonna be going over and using the theater parking?
Well, there's way more parking here than is needed for the shopping center. I think you go over there and you see it's all empty. So we think that, first of all, we're in an environment where parking demand will be dropping. That's our belief, and that's many people's belief. And so we're confident that our numbers work, but we have a lot of room for overflow. So if for some reason, all the parking we build here doesn't work, and we have this huge sea of parking over here to facilitate
So
the
they develop
overflow.
that, yeah, okay.
So we've hit the 11 o'clock hour, so I think we should probably call it because it is 11. And I want to thank all of our speakers. Thank you, Eric, for coming out. And again, this is one element, right? So was it February 29th, I think, is the day, yeah, February 29th is a real date this year. Thank you, Martha, for coming out. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chappie. And I think I heard a motion to adjourn. Oh, well, we kind of got an update. Yeah,